This is Andre Bright, your burnout coach. And we're doing, I think this is day 12 of the Ikdane Burnout series. Ikdane is I Can Do Anything, Not Everything. And so every day for Mental Health Awareness Month, I'm talking about one aspect of burnout. Today, we're talking about rest and specifically passive and active rest and the powers behind both. So there's 5 points I'm going to share with you. And just to give you a bit of a background, a question like a feeling I used to have, right? Every now and again, I have this feeling where I wish there was a remote control where I could just pause time and just be like, click, everything stops. And I have just like a few moments to myself. I don't know if you ever experienced that, but it's literally just an opportunity to pause time and give a break from life for a few bits. But then, of course, when you press play, everything goes back to full throttle. And but those minutes that you had to yourself could be just the pit stop you needed to recharge and give room for like a second burst of energy. Yes, Joy, I'm good. I see you. um, but we don't actually need a remote to do that. Like there's actually power in pausing and creating rest even while the world continues. And in the midst of chaos, sometimes, even while you're having that conflict, even while you're in the midst of that deadline, all that kind of stuff, is being able to create moments of rest so that you can handle the big stuff, so you can have the energy and avoid burnout. So today I'm looking at 5 aspects of that and how you can practically use that to beat burnout. Number one is passive rest. Now, passive rest, I think, is probably the most common. Most people think about this. So you engage in activities that promote relaxation and rejuvenation. Like you might take a nap, listen to calming music, have a bubble bath, and the idea is to recharge your mind and body. And what this usually means is everything is put on pause. You might have a day, you might have a moment in your day, like it might be, like, for example, I use Pomodoro when I'm working, which means, for example, it might be 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest, or 50 minutes of work, 10 minutes of rest on cycle. So it means that I'm regularly taking breaks away from what I'm doing. And the nap thing is actually a real thing. So when you're overly stimulated, when you're overstimulated emotionally, physically, mentally, having a nap can actually help. Sometimes when you're studying, for example, for an exam, you might feel completely overwhelmed. And like a lot of students feel this, where they feel like they just need to take a nap. And some people would argue against that, like, oh, you're taking a nap, the problem's still going to be there when you come back. But the thing about having a nap, especially when you get the right consistency, so you wake up energized, is that you then have the energy to do the thing that you were trying to do, but it also gives your mind the rest. So what you find is that there's actually capacity for thinking. There's a biological connection between the activities in your brain and the processes that go on within your body. And a lot of it is based on glucose. So if you find yourself struggling to think and make connections, you might find yourself forgetting things and getting snappy or making bad judgments, so you can't really process information. You can't do those basic calculations, for example, that you usually can do. It might be because you either haven't eaten enough, so there's not enough physical energy, biological energy within your body to do those processes, or you might just need a rest to allow your mind to reset, right? So that's passive rest. That's the idea of literally putting a stop in the middle of the day. That can also look like breathing. For example, taking a moment to give your brain oxygen, right? It can be, for example, I have Andre days. I try and do them at least once a month, where I'll book myself some time off and it literally be in my calendar as Andre Day. So if anyone tries to do anything on that day, I'm like, sorry, I'm booked. Can we do another day? And having days like that can be really important for me to be able to have time for myself. And in that time, I can sometimes I'll think strategically and all that kind of stuff. But most of the time, it's either I'm going to binge watch something, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to do my shopping, I'm going to just stay in bed comatose for the whole day and watch movies. Whatever it is whatever I need in that moment to recharge. And usually on the day, I'll know what that is. So giving yourself and actually scheduling that time is really important for passive rest, because it allows your whole body to recharge. Um, there's a book called Why We Sleep, and it gives a lot of information on that in terms of the background of why we actually need to. Because in theory, biologically speaking, back in the day, it made no sense, right? You'd If you're sleeping, it means you're in danger. Like, so not in danger, but you're at risk. So if to threats because you're completely unconscious, right? So what would happen is you'd have certain people within your tribe, your group, who will be awake during the day. Certain people within the group will be awake during the night. And so if you find yourself to be a night owl, you might be descendant of those, for example, right? But the main point is whichever one you are, there are moments of the day where you need your rest. And sleep is part of rest, but sleep isn't the only type of rest. So one of the things I've spoken about before is you might go to sleep and wake up still tired, right? And part of that is either you have more, you get to the state where your body is like, okay, we're catching up on sleep now. So then it requires all of it. And then and then you might wake up still tired because now it actually needs 50 hours of rest because you haven't been resting properly the last few weeks. But what I've also find is if you a friend of mine said to rest you need peace. And so if you find yourself waking up still tired, it might mean that you haven't actually rested. And you may not have been able to actually rest because your mind is still going 100 miles an hour, even in your sleep. So that's passive rest, the things to think about. And I'll go on in a second about sleep hygiene and how to create that time when you can actually rest while you sleep. And there's all kinds of data and stuff about how much sleep you need, for example. But remember, it's not just sleep; it's music, it's bubble baths, it's massage, it's whatever you need to rest. And I would implore you to explore what those things could be for you, right? So, number one is passive rest. Number two is active rest, and I think this is the one that we do, but we don't necessarily consider enough. I feel. Now, passive rest, I mentioned, there's a time when your whole body goes to rest, right? So that could be a nap, it could be calming music, meditation, all that kind of stuff. But active rest is when one part of you, which is overly stimulated, is given a chance to have a break, but then you still function, you still go and do other things. So, for example, active rest could mean I've been working mentally, so I've been, at my desk trying to figure out complex problems, etc. Active rest is I'll go for a walk. So my physical body is active, but my mental side is at rest. And what you'll find is you actually sometimes, I don't know if you ever experienced this, but you'll come back from your walk and actually have all the ideas because you've given your mind space to think passively, right? While your body has been active. And that's what's going on inside. So my tired, my tired is tired. Yeah, exactly. And it's really important thing to consider because if for those who feel overwhelmed, the idea of taking full rest might be too much. You might think to yourself, no, I don't have time to have a nap. I don't have time to go to sleep. I don't have time to um, you know, have a bubble bath, for example. So what you might do is think to yourself, okay, what part of me has been active for the most time that's making me feel tired at the moment? Is it my physical? Is it my mental? Is it my emotional capacity that is reaching its max right now? And how can I put that at rest by putting something else to action? So one of the things they say, for example, if there's an injury physically, you might consider walking, small. And then you start to get stronger that way. The same way with rest, right? So you can incorporate physical activities like yoga, walking, stretching into your daily routine so that what you can, for example, do your laundry while while you were thinking about a solution to a problem. Working from home is really good for me because it means that when I don't have to pretend to work at my desk when I'm actually needing mental rest. So I told you before about Pomodoro, so I'll go for a walk, but when I'm at home, I can do chores, for example. It's something to take my mind completely out of the task I'm doing to give my mind rest. And then I can go about and do other stuff that is still active, is still necessary for my day. And it actually might still help. I could clean, I could tidy, I can do something that releases my energy levels. I can shake, I can dance, for example. And then that gives me the energy to go back to the task I was doing before. And I often find in that moment, now I've got the capacity again to do with the task I was doing initially. So there's number one is passive rest, which is complete rest, right? Number two is active rest when you're putting the part of you that is saturated at rest, but then activating another part of you. So, for example, again, if I'm physically tired, I can do something that's a mental thing. If I'm physically tired, I can read, for example. If I'm mentally tired, I can go for a walk. If I'm emotionally tired, I can take a nap. All those things can happen, and give yourself space to process these things. Um, the third one is mindful rest. So this is when you practice mindfulness. I've done a whole session about that before. During your rest periods, and staying present and fully immersing yourself in restorative exercises. So, for example, one of the things about mindfulness is, again, is about being present. So it's not just going for a walk. There will be a difference between going for a walk and a mindful walk. Going for a walk is this: you're going from A to B, you're going around your park, you're coming back, and then that's the end of your walk. Mindful walk is when, while you're walking, you're paying attention to the temperature, you're paying attention to what you hear, what you see, what color are the leaves, and are they falling from the trees? Is there a breeze? All these, hear these rhythms, these patterns of sound. Are you next to a stream? Can you touch the water? All that kind of stuff, right? Um, so I actually have a question here, which is advice for anyone who's new to taking regular meds. How to rest mentally when you're mentally drained? That's a really good question. Um, so the thing about mental rest or mental exertion is that you've been thinking for a long period of time, right? So the simplest thing is that to do something that doesn't require you thinking too much. And so that can be something that you do habitually. It could be do something you can turn off. So mental rest, and I'll give you an example, right? Mental rest might be binge watching trash TV. And it's literally one of the reasons why trash TV is so successful as an industry, is that it allows you to not think. You don't have to think about the plot lines. You don't have to think about who's the good person and bad person. You just watch it to numb your mind, right? You can watch comedy and all that kind of stuff. You can, anything that takes you out of your physical space, what's actually happening, and transports you somewhere else. You can watch a movie. You can do all that. Like I said before, you can, if you're mentally drained, you can go for a spa weekend, you can go for a walk, you can spend time with family and friends, you can do anything that doesn't require you to think, right? And especially if it's something that if you've got headaches, for example, like that, you can attend to the physical side of things. So have you eaten properly? Have you kept yourself hydrated? Are you having enough physical activity in your day? And I don't just mean like literally marching to work and back. I mean, are you doing regular exercise? Are you taking the stairs instead of the lift? All those kind of things can help with your physical, with your mental capacity, because it takes the attention away from what you're thinking about into your physical body. I actually find anything that is mindful to be a really good way to help rest mentally. So in that sense, you're still thinking, right? So let's say you've got something, you've got your moving house, or you got to figure out which school your children are going to go to, and all these kind of stuff are going to be mentally draining things, but and which require thought, which require glucose, which means it takes energy from your body, right? But the one which is why it's important to make sure you've eaten well, you've kept yourself hydrated, etc. But what you can do then is, instead of thinking about, again, looking at the stress versus the stressor, the stress is what's happening within your body, the stressor is what's causing the thing that's happening within your body. So instead of thinking about the stressor, which might be the challenge you've got at work, the challenge you've got at home, etc., think about what's happening in your body. So take time to be like, okay, what can I, like, for example, grounding is a really good thing that I use, is what can I see, taste, touch, smell, hear? Like, what is going on in my physical space right now? What can I focus on? One of the reasons why I like breathing is that you can feel the air going into your lungs in a way that you don't pay attention to when you're just walking around your day. Is do the breathing exercises, deep, long breathing, to give your body and mind the message that you're safe. So short, sharp breaths tell your body that you're and your mind that you're in danger, there's a threat. So long, deep breaths tell your body that you're safe. And so in those, you can actually pay attention to the air going into your lungs and coming out of your mouth, for example. How does that feel? Paying attention to that. And you can find yourself giving enough time for you to step away from whatever it is that you were doing, whatever task you were doing. And then you can spend time, you can read, for example, you can take yourself, whether it's fiction, I would suggest actually fiction as opposed to non-fiction, so that you can take your mind away. Like I said before, try and find a space where you can escape to give yourself the break so that when you come back, you can actually have the capacity. And again, there's also things like naps. And it's a genuine, I know it always sounds like a cop out, but it's a genuine thing. It's been researched. The idea about naps helping you to release stress. Um, when you come back, you recharge, and so you give yourself energy to go again. I hope that helps as an answer to your question. Okay, so I mentioned number one being passive rest, and that is 5 powers of passive and active rest to fight burnout. This is what this session is about. Number one is passive rest, going, taking a nap, listening to calming music, enjoying a bubble bath, anything to recharge your mind and body. Number two is active rest. So while you're putting one part of your body at rest, while the other part goes active. So, for example, thinking to yourself, am I physically, mentally, or emotionally drained? Whichever one is drained, you activate another one. So if you're physically drained, you can do something mental or emotional, right? If you're mentally drained, you could do something physical or emotional. If you're emotionally drained, you could do something mental or physical that will allow the other part to rest, right? So, for example, it might be yoga, reading, stretching, going on taking a nap, like we said before. Active rest might be going rock climbing, going bike riding. It might be painting, for example. It might be writing music or writing poetry, or it might be whatever it is, anything creative, right? So it allows you while you're doing that to. I'm going to give you another example of why active rest is really important. You might have heard of things like walking meetings. This is something that's actually being really big right now. And I know a lot of coaches, for example, who do walking sessions, and coaches, they'll meet you in a park and you'll walk and talk. And the fact that you're physically moving allows your mind to actually do processing, because when it's like if you're creating a body of work and you've been doing it for time, and you've not taken a break, it gets to a point where you can't think anymore. Like, so for example, for me, I've realized that I have about 20 to 35 minutes of consistent work before I start to shut off. 20 to 35 minutes of consistent work without a break before I start to shut off, unless I'm in flow state. If I'm in flow state, I can sometimes go up to like an hour, maybe hour and a half. But usually it's about, say, roughly 30 minutes I can do just ham. I start and I just continue without break, just not even breaking, coming up for air, right? But at the end of that 35 minutes, you better know that you can't even make conversations with me. I'm done. I'm drained. That's when I need to go for a walk. That's when I need to go to the toilet, have a drink of water. And that's when I let me hydrate myself small. Good. That's when I do those things, right? It's really important. So mindful rest is when you're being present in your rest. You're paying attention to your physical body, you're paying attention to your surroundings, you're paying attention to nature, and you're being present. You're not thinking about regrets of the past or shoulda, woulda, couldas. You're not thinking about anxiety of the future and what might be happening tomorrow or next week or what's on your to-do list or something that you're trying to think about your trust fund that you want to set up in 5 years' time. You're not thinking about all of that. You're just focusing on today. You're focusing on now. What is happening right now within your body, within your environment, right? So that's mindful rest. Sleep hygiene is number 4 on the powers of passive and active rest. And this is something that I really have to go into because sleep is so important for recharging. And there's still information that we're still learning about the power of sleep and how important it is. But There's also an idea about sleep hygiene, how to get good sleep, good rest, right? I mentioned this slightly before. This is your opportunity to dive deep in it. So quality sleep is the key here. It's not just am I going to close my eyes, having a hallucination, and wake up and still feel tired, right? This is about how can I create the environment where I'm going to have quality sleep so that I can almost guarantee that when I wake up, I feel refreshed. That is the question. Part of that is going to be paying attention to yourself, like what conditions usually need to be the case for you to have good sleep. For me, I need time before bed, which is away from technology. I need maybe like 30 minutes to an hour of digital detox. I need to be in darkness. I need to be um, like for me, for example, I'll get into bed and I'll just rest. I'll just rest before I go to sleep. And I have walking meditation music. I have some kind of music or affirmations, for example, that's going on relatively low, so not too loud. And it allows me to just drift. Sometimes I'll listen to an audio book, which is fiction. It just takes me to another world, right? So those are the kind of things that allow me to go to sleep. I've noticed I would have planned for my next day the night before, for example. I would have thought to myself, okay, what am I doing tomorrow? Dump all that stuff into paper so that it's not in my mind when I go to sleep. That is actually thinking about it. That has been something that has been a real key, actually, is dumping what's in your mind before you go to sleep so that when you go to sleep, you're not still churning it over, because that is something I used to really struggle with. I'll be active up till the point of bed. Like I'll go out to a friend's party or something like that, or I'd have a meeting or something like that, or I'd have some coaching calls up until 9, 10, 11 o'clock. And then as soon as I press stop, I'll just get dressed and or undressed and then go to bed and expect to have a good night's sleep. It doesn't work like that for me anymore. If I do that, I know for sure I'm going to have a terrible sleep. So nowadays, like I said, I'll dump everything onto paper, into a journal, plan for the next day, whatever it is, whatever I'm thinking about, get it out of my head. Then I might have a shower, for example, give my mental rest a chance and feel the water along my body, the temperature, etc. Feeling clean, for example, is a really good in terms of hygiene as well as sleep hygiene before I go to bed, and metaphorically wash away the day before I go to sleep. I pray, I think about the people I love and all that kind of stuff while I'm going to sleep. And then when I get to bed, I usually try and go to bed at a similar kind of time each night and then wake up similar kind of time each morning. So 9 o'clock, usually I'm winding down. 10 o'clock, I try and be asleep so that when it comes to like 6 o'clock, I'm awake and I'm able to get out of bed and do whatever I need to do, like the lives like this, for example, during the weekdays. And so prioritizing quality sleep is important as a bedtime routine, and then creating comfortable sleep environment. One of the things I do as well is I'll have incense burning, for example, so it smells nice when I'm going to sleep. There are certain things, like for example, for me, lavender is really good for that. It's like a trigger for me. If I smell lavender, I start to feel relaxed, and it tells my body, okay, it's sleep time now. Like, what are the patterns you can create around sleep so that you can almost guarantee that you're going to have good sleep? It's like a science experiment. Science is usually proven by testing over time and getting the same results. So, what are the things that you do over and over again that guarantee the results of good sleep? Pay attention to that. Um, and so, yeah, like I mentioned, enough rest and support. Did you have enough hugs today? Did you have enough fresh air today? Did you have enough time to be creative today? Did you contribute to someone else's life today? All those kind of things. What are the things that help you feel good so that when you're at the time when you're time to go to sleep, you actually rest? Because when it comes to burnout, if you're not going to have good sleep hygiene, then you're going to wake up just as tired as you or exhausted as you were when you went to sleep, which means that it only gets worse as the days continue. Even if you're doing good during the day, if you don't end your day well, you're going to start at a deficit, and that means you're going to need to play catch up all day just to get back to zero. And that can be part of why we feel like so difficult to escape burnout, is because we're starting the day each time from a deficit. The last and final one is finding balance between rest and activity. So we've talked about before the idea of passive rest, which is complete rest, right? Naps, etc. Talk about active rest. Are you going rock climbing or walking? Are you painting? Are you singing? Whatever it is to take yourself away from whatever was exhausted, right? Is it mindful rest? Are you paying attention to what's in the present, your breathing, your environment, the people you're around, taking in the data and not thinking about the past or future in that time? Do you have good sleep hygiene? Do you have a routine? Are you waking up and going to sleep at the similar times? Are you able to dump everything from your mind so it doesn't stay in there while you're trying to sleep, which means that you wake up having not rested? Like, what is your balance between rest and activity during the day? Is it 80/20? Are you able to incorporate certain things during each day? Are you able to say for yourself, okay, I have to drive into work every day. Let me listen to a podcast so I'm mentally active, but physically active as well. But then, or do you need to take the time off? Do you eat in silence so that you're not mentally active while you're physically active? You know, that's something for me I try and do every now and again, is mindful eating. So instead of watching something or a series or trying to think about work or planning stuff, I'll turn everything off and it will just be me and my food. I'll take time to prepare it. I'll do it with love intentionally. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really enjoy this meal. I'm gonna make something I really like. And I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna taste. I'm going to be like, okay, cool, this is delicious. This is something I would give to someone I love, like I would make the meal that I would want to give to someone I love, right? And I'll make it for myself. And then I'll sit and I'll eat, make sure the TV's off, make sure the music is off. Um, you know, are the windows open so I can feel like a breeze, connect my inside with my outside. And then I'll eat and I'll enjoy the food. Each bite, I'll pay attention to what the flavors I'm tasting. Like, how does it feel to actually ingest the food and feel like the capacity of my stomach is being filled up? Am I grateful that I'm able to eat in silence in a space that I feel comfortable and safe? Like all that kind of stuff. Making sure about being present within that day, within that moment. And then after I finish, I'll wash my dishes, all that kind of stuff, clean up so my environment is clean. And then I can go back to whatever I was doing before, because then that gives me the break, like the mental break that was the question earlier on. Is a good example of how to feel actually detached from whatever thing is causing the overwhelm, and allowing yourself to actually, enjoy a moment in time. We did a whole session on joy before as well. How to enjoy a moment in time to shift your energy so that you have capacity for whatever it was that was causing that burnout in the first place. So those are the five powers of passive and active rest to fight against burnout. Number one was passive rest. Number two was active rest. Number three was mindful rest. Number four was sleep hygiene. And number five is the balance between rest and activity. Those are five important things for you to consider if you're facing burnout. What kind of rest do you need? Is it physical rest? Is it mental rest? Is it emotional rest? Is it spiritual rest? Right? Is it financial rest? Right? You need to stop doing that shopping and putting yourself more into the red. Like, what kind of rest do you need that is gonna allow you to feel recharged when you do start each day? Something to consider. And if this is something you need help with, if this is something that has resonated with you, let's have a chat. I offer like 30-minute virtual calls, which allow us to sit for a few minutes. I'll hear what you'll be going through. I'll give you a couple of tips and something actionable within that time that you can do as well. I'm really eager to do that, so that within that 30 minutes, whether you work with me or not, you at least get something that you can practically use. And if there's something the way you feel it's been good and you use it and it's having that kind of impact that you want, then maybe it's an opportunity for us to work together in the future. I run programs. There's a burnout program I'm going to be running from June for 12 weeks. I offer one-to-one coaching as well. So it's something I work with, and obviously it's not just burnout that I work with. Anything that you're trying to set your goals and achieve. But specifically right now, I'm looking at burnout as something I'm realizing is another type of pandemic it's causing so much damage to our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, our relationships. And it's really starting to get to a stage where pretty much I would say about 80 or 90% of the people I work with have some kind of evidence of burnout happening within their lives. So you've got stress, which is a tension between what you're doing, whether it's mental or emotional, prolonged stress, which is when it goes on, or chronic stress, should I say, which is goes on for a long period of time. And then you've got burnout, which is when you don't deal with that prolonged stress. And so when it comes to dealing with it, to you, all these things I'm saying within the series is about trying to incorporate all those things into your daily activities. Don't wait until you're at burnout before you start to think about active rest and passive rest. Try and incorporate it into your daily routine. Have it with your friends, have it with your family so that you all do it. Go for a walk with the family, when you're having dinner with each other, pay attention, talk about your day. Um, ask questions like what you found about today that enriched you, what you found about today that gave you hope for the future. Talk about the positive things, give yourselves capacity, because there's enough negativity in the world, and that can also add to our feeling of burnout. So the question for me to you is, what kind of rest do you need, and how are you going to incorporate it to build net balance between rest and activity in your day? Tomorrow, I'm back again with another session on burnout, and this is going to be continued until the last day of May. If you haven't, if you've missed any of these sessions, go back onto my page, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Instagram, and you can see the previous sessions. See what has resonated with you, and hop on a call with me. Let's talk. Let's Don't let burnout burn you out. It doesn't have to be that way. So thank you so much for your time. I'll speak to you tomorrow.